Hi everyone, welcome back after our lunch break. Did you all enjoy the lunch? Yes, I'm glad. Now we're going to get back into our wellness seminar. Welcome back to Busan International Wellness Conference 2020. We are coming to the second half after lunch, and hello to all of our online viewers on YouTube. 반갑습니다. Thank you for joining us. Wherever you are in the world, of course, BIWC 2020 made the decision to take the event online to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. So we really appreciate your flexibility and your understanding. To our speakers, VIPs and guests who are here, thank you all for being with us and for really strictly adhering to our COVID-19 prevention measures. We really appreciate that. And before I go on too much, I would love to introduce our next speaker. So this time, we're going to get some really useful information about the health benefits of fermented food and the gut microbiome. So please welcome, with a huge round of applause, Dr. Mohamed Mannaa, who is a research microbiologist of Busan National University. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. Big round of applause. Dr. Mannaa, please come to the stage. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Laura, and thanks for having me today. I'm going to speak about the fermented foods and their health benefits. And to talk about that, like, big part of my talk will be about the links between the gut microbiome and health. So I will start by introducing the microbes in association with the human body, and then methods that we use to study the microbiome, and then how the microbiome structure is developing over the age, and then the links between gut microbiome and health, and then kombucha and kimchi for a healthy gut microbiome, and then finally gut microbial ecosystem transplant. So to start with microbes in association with the human body, I would like to go to the early beginning for the first time ever microbes were being visualized. So this was the Dutch merchant and scientist Anthony van Leeuwenhoek almost 350 years ago. He was the inventor of the compound microscope. Once he made the microscope, he started to look around, and one of the first specimen that he observed was a specimen that he get a scrap from his teeth. And he see these microbes, and that amazed him so much that he even wrote the water, or that solution that he was visualizing, seemed to be alive from this vast amount of microbes. And then, since then, we have been thinking of microbes as always, disease-causing organisms. So these two gentlemen here, Lewis Pasteur and Robert Koch, are the fathers of pathology. They are the ones who, identify the pathogens and link, or the founders of the germ theory of disease, that microbes are disease-causing organisms. But actually, this idea is as old as Avicenna, or we call him Ibn Sina. He's a Persian scientist, and he was talking about something that we cannot see by naked eye, that is the cause of diseases. So we kept thinking of microbes as disease-causing organisms, but this is not really true. We start to rediscover now the microbial world, and we have seen that the facts say that much less than 1% of the microbes are pathogenic. So as this little guy is saying here, we are not all bad. So how did we change that perspective? Let me just give you that example here. If we are required to study this group of people or this population, but the approach we choose to study is to take a sample and then take him out of this population and study him and then make conclusions that we apply for all that group. Do you think, like, using this approach, we will have like accurate or sound information about this group of people? Of course not. This was the same, what is happening in the traditional microbiology. We were just relying on the cacao talk. So we're just relying on cultivation of microbes on a petri plate, and then studying the microbes here. So actually, less than 1% of microbes in a given ecosystem can be obtained in culture. So all the microbiology findings that we have until maybe 15 years ago were coming from studying just 1% of the population. The 99% went unnoticed because of that reductionist approach that we were utilizing. But think how significant is this, that all the findings that we have in the microbiology field comes from studying 1%. So what if we study now, we are able to study now the 99%, this is what is called the metagenomic era, that we do not need to rely anymore on cultivation of microbes, and we rely on molecular tools that allow us to study the whole population. That's why if you are noticing like a surge in the information of the microbiome and gut microbiome research and so on, it's because of this. It's because in the past, like it's just started 15 years ago, we started to have collect information about all the 100% of the microbes, not just the 1% that can be obtained in culture. So in that metagenomic era, we rely on a piece of the DNA in all the microbes. It's called the 16S RNA, and this is like to simplify, to make that concept simple, is like a barcode for each type of microbe. That using it, I can quantify how many of each bacteria I have, and I also can study their functions by the RNA-seq or the metabolomics. So this has revolutionized our understanding to the entire world. So from these studies, what do we know now? We know that humans are not that single organism. We are super organism. We have vast amount of organisms living or residing in our bodies. We also know that we are more microbes than human. If you think of the number of cells in the human body, you will see that only 10% are human and the 90% are microbial cells. Not only this, but also if you think of functions like genes, for each one gene of the human, there is approximately 306 genes of microbes. And to give you one fact about this, if you think of your fingertip, and if you think of the same amount of fecal sample, it would contain a number of microbes reaching up to 10 to the power 11, which is, that number is the same number as all the humans that ever lived on Earth. So these vast amount of microbes residing in our body, they carry out many different functions. They promote the immunity, they protect against diseases, they extract energy from the food, and they produce essential vitamins and many other functions that I will go through in that presentation. So, as I'm telling you, we are not a single organism. We are an ecosystem. The human body is like an ecosystem. So, in that ecosystem, like other ecosystems, the most important item is the diversity and richness. If you think of these ecosystems down here, when there is diverse and rich and different numbers of organisms living together in an interaction, that ecosystem is like having a resistance or resilient, is stable and can carry out its function very well. When the diversity is reduced, like here up, you see that there's something wrong. Same is for the human microbiome. When the richness is reduced, there is a problem. In all the studies that compare the diseased individual to a healthy one, when the diversity is low, this is always attached to diseased status. And what we know now from the studies is that the current modern lifestyle, as we see down here, is depriving the microbial ecosystem in the human body from its diversity. So if you compare this kind of modern lifestyle to the primitive lifestyle that we see here, those are the Yanomami groups. They live around the Amazon and they have this kind of primitive lifestyle. And they actually have very good microbiome. So in a study that compared the gut microbiome between this group of people and the people with the modern lifestyle from the United States of America, we noticed that there was a big difference. Here in blue, each point of these represents a microbiome profile. And in red, this comes from the Malawians in Africa. They also have primitive lifestyle there. And the ones in green are the Amerindians, or the Native Americans, that they still keep the primitive lifestyle. We noticed first that there was a big difference between the gut microbiome of people with modern lifestyle compared to these guys here. And we also noticed that although Malawians are in Africa, Amerindians are in South America, they had a similar microbiome because of their lifestyle that they are having. Speaking of diversity, we noticed that the group of the United States of America, or the guys with the modern lifestyle, they had too much reduced diversity, almost more than 60% reduction in the diversity of the microbiome. So we should really take care what we are doing to the microbiome with the modern lifestyle that we are having. To stress more on this, we need to know, okay, what is the reason for this kind of shift in the microbes between these two groups? And we see in the function, these are the genes, the relative expression of genes. So in the group that is having primitive lifestyle, they had a high abundance in the genes that are responsible for the breakdown of complex carbohydrates that they have in their diet. On the other hand, the guys with the modern lifestyle, like the USA group, they had these genes that are, responsible for the breakdown of simple sugars. So as we hear in the first talk, that simple sugars, are not really good for health, like they cause spikes in the glucose, and they have other. So from that, we know that one of the reasons that we are depriving our microbiome from their diversity is diet. So how is the microbiome being developed? This is the first gift that you get from your mom at birth. So the people who have, or the babies who have C-section delivery, they are not, exposed to the vaginal canal microbiota, and that's why they have low diversity, and they found out they have a high risk of several chronic diseases, and asthma, food allergy, even autism. In comparison to these babies with vaginal delivery, they are exposed to the microbiota in the vaginal canal, which is mainly dominated by lactobacillus, which is very good bacteria for the start of the, the microbiome profile of the baby. So he will have low risk of these diseases. And there was a very smart study that was published in Nature. They have seen that the babies with C-section delivery, they lack the diversity in their microbiome. Most of their microbiome are like microbes that are found in the skin and so on. So what they did was so smart and simple and very good. Like it's going. I think it will be like it will be adopted in all the hospital, I think. So they simply take a swab from the mother's vaginal canal microbes that I told you it's mostly lactobacillus, and they wrap the baby with this swab so that they were able to restore part of the diversity in the microbiome, and it helps a lot in reducing the risk of diseases. We also see that throughout the ages, we are, developing our microbiome, and there are several factors that might affect, the composition. So the formula fed, the breast fed, like for example, the breast fed, the mother's milk contains some kind of oligosaccharides that are, promoting specific good microbes in the baby, so in the development, he will have a better microbiome. And then you can see differences between the lifestyles of people, and then at old age, we notice that the diversity is reduced. So how do we fuel the microbiome? How this microbiome, are like feed on? This is a diagram of the gastrointestinal tract, and we see here, this is the small intestine. These are the simple nutrients, and these are the undigestible nutrients, mainly plant fibers. So what happens? These plant fibers cannot be digested in the human GI tract, and that's why they go to the large colon, and there they fuel the microbes in the large colon. That's why all the nutritionists, they always advise the eating plant fibers, because they are the fuel of the microbes in the large colon. The microbes in the large colon will ferment these plant fibers and can provide very useful features for the human. Let me speak more about this. If we fuel the microbiome, like in that in that side of the slide, we see there is a rich and diverse microbiome here. This will help protect against pathobionts, or pathogenic organisms that are there, but they cannot exert their bad effect because they are protected against by these microbes. They also train and help the immune system to carry out its function, and they help against exogenous pathogens. But if this microbiome diversity and richness is disturbed, like in that case, for example, the microbes or the pathobionts will do their bad work and produce their toxins and so on. There will be inflammation. The exogenous pathogens can also, dominate and do the harmful effect. This slide looks complicated, but it's very simple. I just want to say that we should really take care of what we eat, because we are not just eating for ourselves. As I told you, like the human cells in the human body are just 10%. So we should really consider the 90% and what they feed on. So if we feed them with dietary fiber, like plant fibers will promote the growth of these microbes, which will ferment the plant fibers and will produce these short-chain fatty acids, the butyrate and acetate, which are very good for health. They are anti-inflammatory, they are anti-proliferative, they control the brain health, because they actually trigger the production of neurotransmitters like the serotonin, the happiness hormone. So consider eating plant fibers if you want to have these very good compounds in your body. On the other hand, if we are feeding our body with dietary and phospholipids, or animal fats, if we're eating a lot of animal fats, red meats, and so on, we will be feeding these guys, these microbes. And these microbes will be happy to feed on this animal fat and produce in your system trimethylamine and ethanolamine that are directly linked to the risk of atherosclerosis, and also they promote the growth of salmonella, which is a bad microbe. So think of it like what you feed the microbe will show in your health. So in that case, for example, if you hear that eating a lot of red meat is always linked to the risk of atherosclerosis, this is actually microbial. If you don't have these microbes, you will not produce these ones, and you will not have the risk of the developing atherosclerosis. And there was one study that they convinced some vegans to consume red meat. I don't know how much they pay them, but anyway, they eat red meat, and they did not have these compounds in their system, although they eat red meat, because these guys, these vegans, they have starved these microbes. They don't have these microbes, so they did not produce these compounds in their system. This was a very nice study. Like, it's not a study, but they just wanted to see what will happen to the gut microbiome when they eat nothing for 10 days except McDonald's. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just McDonald's. And this guy, he happened to be like the son of one epidemiologist or geneticist, professor in genetics and epidemiology. So he was his study participant. He ate nothing for 10 days but McDonald's. And what happened to his microbiome is that this guy lost 40% just after 10 days of his microbial diversity. 1,400 different species were gone, lost. So imagine their functions and what they could, these good microbes be doing. They are now gone, and maybe he will never get them back, or it's very difficult to build again the microbiome. Okay, let's move to the link between the gut microbiome and health. And we see here from that figure that, what happens in the gut does not stay in the gut. It's not like Vegas. What happens in the gut will affect other organs in your body. So even your joints will be affected by dysbiosis or disturbed gut microbiome structure. Today I will just talk about the rheumatoid arthritis and obesity, because they were related to part of my research. So in obesity, very nice studies that were conducted to, find the links between the gut microbiome and obesity. So this chamber, inside this chamber, we can grow what is called germ-free mice. These are mice that have no germs at all, no bacteria at all. And then we can use these mice as a vessel to study what the different microbiome can do in the body. So here, this study was conducted on a twin. So the difference in the twin, identical twins, is not genetic. It's not genetic, it's something else. Anyway, they take the microbiome from the obese individual and they add it to the germ-free mice, and they notice that the mice gain weight. The lean twin or the thin twin, the mice did not gain weight by having his microbes. So there was like a link between obesity and also gaining weight because they were fed on the same diet. This study has been repeated many times, and they already have identified the microbes that could be linked to being lean or being thin. Because as I told you, microbes extract energy from the food and they control the metabolism. As for the rheumatoid arthritis, this work was conducted in our lab, and let me tell you that it's very difficult to work with human feces. So anyway, we found that there are some microbes that are linked to increased inflammation in the body, and in particular, this one in red here, Probetella copri, is always linked to the incidence of the rheumatoid arthritis. There are also links between the gut microbiome and the brain, as I was telling you that they control the production of the neurotransmitters, and there's now the concept of psychobiotics. So we are moving from the probiotics to psychobiotics. Those are live microbes that you eat and they will make you feel better or will make you even feel depressed. So this is like a hot topic now of research. So at the end, is it possible to promote or help improve the gut microbiome? The short answer is yes, we can do that. So the first and most important is eating diverse and fiber-rich diet. Also the fermented foods and drinks, probiotics and prebiotics, and then the minimal use of antibiotics if possible. Today I choose to speak about kombucha and kimchi because I see them as the most important fermented products. Kombucha is a fermented black sugared tea. So it's just a black tea that is having white sugar normally. Generally, black tea itself has polyphenols. And when we put the microbes that would do the fermentation, it's called SCOBY, stands for Symbiotic Colony of Bacteria and Yeast. What we'll have is this wonder drink that will have even better quality polyphenols than the black tea. It will have probiotics, live bacteria and yeast. It will have organic acids, that among them the glucuronic acid, that is actually very good to clear the body from the toxins. It attaches physically to the toxins and take it out. You will have prebiotics because these microbes produce microbial fibers that are fueling the gut microbes, and you have vitamins and other metabolites. This makes this wonder drink good for anti-cancer, boosting immunity, helps against gastric ulcers, liver detoxification, is anti-diabetic, antimicrobial, it helps in weight loss, anti-depression, helps in digestion, clear out toxins, and helps against atherosclerosis just by 10 to 12 days fermentation of the black tea. So what is inside there? There are more than 10 types of bacteria and 10 types of yeast that are really good for health. Like if you compare this drink to the most famous fermented thing, yogurt, yogurt has 1 or 2 types of bacteria. This one has more than 10 bacteria and then more than 10 yeast. What happens is that the yeast first break the polyphenols to better quality polyphenols and break down the sucrose into glucose and fructose, and then the bacteria comes and do its magic to produce these very good healthy things. But when you talk to anyone, they usually memorize this phrase, like the health benefits of kombucha does not have like scientific evidence, but this is not true anymore. This study was conducted in our lab, and it showed evidence on the helpful role of kombucha in alleviating non-alcoholic fatty liver. So when we treat the mice with kombucha, mice that are developing this fatty liver, we notice that the fat deposition is less. And this mechanism was linked to the effect of kombucha, or the good effect of kombucha, on the microbial, on the gut microbiome. Then for kimchi, I just want to say that same thing. That basically, it's very famous food. It's actually the face of the Korean cuisine, and it has been linked to many different, health-promoting effects that are always that Korean people are known of, and their longevity and so on. This was the most accurate study on the, microbial structure of kimchi, and we found good microbes that are carrying out, very good functions. This was a very recent study that links consumption of fermented food to low death rate of COVID-19. That study is not peer-reviewed yet, but it's published. They just compared the death rates and the consumption of fermented vegetables in European countries, and they noticed that when in the countries that have higher consumption of fermented vegetables, they have significantly lower death rates that is related to COVID-19. And the reason for that is that they found that fermented vegetables have reduced that kind of, that thing that helps the virus to enter the cells. So, although I'm not really convinced with these results, because you cannot trust the death rates statistics between different countries. But anyway, as we saw that eating fermented food helps in the general immunity, and so of course it is expected that it will help in the reduction of death rates. The final solution: what if I did everything but I still cannot have a good microbiome? So this is the microbial ecosystem. You are changing the whole ecosystem. You are taking a healthy gut microbiome from a healthy individual into the diseased one. So this is the fecal microbiota transplant. And this happened when they were trying to find a solution to a nasty infection by Clostridium difficile that happens always as a result of consumption of antibiotics. So when they tried the fecal microbiota transplant, they found out success rate of over 92% in treating that Clostridium difficile compared to just 30% success. And this is a very nasty disease that was, having a lot of mortality. So they even stopped the clinical trial, and they started to, apply that fecal microbiota transplant to treat people with Clostridium difficile. And now this gut microbiota transplant is like a very useful, it can be the future of, treatment of several diseases. So we should stop thinking of feces as trash. It's actually treasure. In that publication, say even repopulating the gut. So when you have a gut that is having low diversity, you can repopulate. It's actually very funny. It can be also, effective treatment of obesity, and they are now describing that. And how to do it is very simple. You just take that friend, and then from the healthy individual, and then process it and have it as enema, or even now, dried, freeze-dried or lyophilized pills. So you should really start thinking of your donor from now. Think of that friend of you that whatever he eats, he never gain weight. I think you'll be a very good, Yeah, I will be happy to have your questions.
Oh, Dr. Mohamed Mannaa, give him a round of applause. Thank you so much. So for our friends who are watching at home, I don't know if you can hear all the laughs and giggles from the audience here, but hopefully you've been laughing along as well at home. We do have some comments and some questions for you, Dr. Mannaa. First of all, we've got Ricardo Percussion, who said, OMG, this is so interesting. Okay, now I want kombucha. Where can I find it in Busan?
Yeah, okay, that's a very good question. Actually, to have a good source of kombucha, you need to find someone who is really doing it well, someone who knows microbiology, so you can contact me and I give you some kombucha. But actually, it can be found in the supermarkets, but I suggest really finding a reliable microbiology aware person, because fermentation of kombucha can be dangerous because you need to know what you are fermenting. What microbes do you have? So this needs a microbiologist. So it can be found, like there are some people who are brewing it, and there are some reliable resources. You can contact me with this regard.
Thank you so much for your answer, and thank you to Ricard for your question. I've got another online, comments are blowing up, DMs are blowing up. We've got a lot of people saying to you, congratulations, thank you Dr. Mannaa for all this information. Also, Nizal Talader said, my question is about the point you mentioned about rheumatoid arthritis. As you said, there are inflammatory microbes that increase rheumatoid arthritis. So is there any way that these microbes can be tackled?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you so much. Actually, now with regard to these autoimmune diseases like the rheumatoid arthritis and others, the use of probiotics is very promising now because these probiotics, they help, recover the balance and control the bad microbes. One of the things that I advise everyone who is afraid of autoimmune diseases is to consume a good amount of fermented foods. Because fermented foods, like the ones I presented today, kombucha and kimchi, they have live microbes that can live there, but not only this, they also have prebiotics that will help promote the growth of good microbes and suppress the bad ones. So yes, it is now being thought about the use of probiotics in treatment of autoimmune diseases like the rheumatoid arthritis.
Thank you so much for your answer. We've also got Ali who says repopulating. That was hilarious. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, they literally used that. It's a scientific publication, and they use repopulate. It's repopulating. It's like giving population to the gut. So they say repoop because they are actually transferring the poop to the gut. So repopulate.
Thank you for that explanation as well. Pearl Park as well, giving us a message saying, it's so fascinating. Earlier this year, I discovered the works of this doctor named Maya Sheetreat. She wrote the book, The Dirt Cure, Healthy Food, Healthy Gut, Happy Child.
Yeah, that's true. That they have that concept now of let them eat dirt. Like let your babies go around and build it, especially in the early age, because what you start affects what will be built on in the future. As adults, it's very difficult to change your microbiome. But in the baby, when you have a good start, a good first colonizers, they will shape what is going on later on. And also people who are consuming, antibiotics, they have to take antibiotics for infection or so on. They really should consider thinking of their microbiome because antibiotics affect dramatically their microbiome. I have been under treatment recently, so I also think of, the microbiome are very important for the general wellness.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's hopefully what we're going to be able to enjoy tomorrow, getting into the dirt, because like you mentioned, Dr. Mannaa, there's fantastic bacteria in dirt that is really good for the body for so many reasons, right? Yeah. How about here in the audience? Is there anyone who would like to ask a question to Dr. Mannaa from on-site? Thank you. Get the microphone.
This on? Okay. My question is in regard to probiotic supplementation. If we do have to take an antibiotic, do you have any recommendations for the timing of medication and probiotic supplements so that one doesn't cancel the other out?
Yeah, actually, being treated with antibiotics has a very bad effect on the microbiome. They wipe everything. They are not specific, so they almost kill everything. So one person after a course of antibiotics is having a very bad microbiome, a very low diversity microbiome, especially the ones who are getting it IV, intravenous. And once they finish the course of antibiotics, I think they should really consider having a fixed amount of fermented foods and diverse diet for a while to be able to recover what happens to their microbiome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
And we've still got time for more questions. Dr. Cho, we've got a question here.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I was wondering what your recommendation for kimchi consumption is. Are we speaking like bowls of kimchi a day, or is a couple of slices with my rice okay?
That's also a very good question. Thank you so much. So it's actually not how much you eat, it's how diverse diet you have. So actually consumption of a lot of kimchi, for example, as you mentioned, is not so good. You know, kimchi is salty and you will have a high salt concentration diet. So it's better to have just little amount, as Korean people do. They are doing amazing. They are eating it as a side dish with almost all their meals, and they have a very small dish of that kimchi around them. But this is also a very good question, because when you think of diet, it's not about how much, dietary fibers. It's not how much you are taking from the dietary fibers, it's how different dietary fibers you are taking. I'm not saying, for example, you are getting from one plant too much 1 kilogram. No, but actually getting, different parts. So you are making sure you are, fueling different types of microbes. That's why you restore the diversity.
Thank you very much. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Thank you very much. I believe Dr. Kessler, Professor Kessler also has a question.
Sure, thank you for your wonderful, interesting presentation. Because of it, I'm going to be late, but that's okay. I already told my students I'm going to be late
thank you
to my next event. I'm wondering, so I was a C-section baby, so maybe you can give me some recommendations on some things that I can do as far as maybe my gut needs more population of the microbes, and what I could do to populate it, if there's supplements or other foods like doenjang jjigae and kimchi and other things in Korea that I can have to improve my gut diversity.
That's a very good question, and it touched me also, because my baby was born in Korea and he is C-section. And that was before that study, that was in 2018. If I know it, I would do that practice that they did, but I didn't know about that. So anyway, yeah, as I say, that it is still possible to, improve your gut microbiome. And one of the things that I advise you to do, start thinking of kombucha. Kombucha is an amazing source of probiotics and prebiotics, live microbes and also prebiotics, because nowadays there is these kind of thoughts that, when you eat probiotics, they did not reach a life to the, but actually even a small amount of them can reach the gut and can, grow in the population. And so I advise everyone who listens to me to start thinking of consuming fermented foods on a daily basis, and I suggest kombucha. Kombucha is really amazing. It's a wonder drink. If anyone did not hear about it before, please Google it and see. It's an amazing drink.
Thank you so much for your question and your answer. We've also got a couple more people. Ricardo saying thank you so much. Incredible knowledge. Everfresh Biocoating Technology says kimchi and kombucha will be on my diet from now on. I think all of us are feeling the same way. And I've got one personal question. What about things like making your own yogurt at home? Is that especially helpful for repopulation of the gut microbiome?
Yeah, very much. And just for the time today, I speak about 2 different kinds of fermented foods, but there are many around there, and you should see what do you like more and keep having it in your diet. So yeah, making it at home, just if you take precautions of fermenting it in a good way and not having bad microbes, or that will be very good. And maybe later on we can make something like a workshop or something where I explain how to ferment it in a good way, or something like that.
That sounds phenomenal. Who's coming to the workshop of fermented food? Everybody. I think now we're going to wrap up the Q&A session of this presentation. So please, ladies and gentlemen, give a very, very warm closing round of applause to Dr. Mohamed Mannaa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.